All right, we got a powerhouse panel for you on this Thursday morning. We start with former Nevada State GOP chairwoman and Republican strategist Amy Tarkanian. Good to see you. We also have Project 21 Advisory Board member Christopher Arps with us. You guys remember the arts, those classes that we all took in school when we were little? So many kids don't have those now, Amy.
I played the alto saxophone and I participated in choir and theater, so I'm right there with you.
Oh, teacher's pet right there. Amy, I can see that. Chris, did you play any instruments?
I did not play any instruments, but Rob, I have to tell you, I love the Mr. Hansen gestures.
He would.
Very fortunate.
Can anybody relate to me that he would do the scales with his hands, and I never knew what he was doing, but I would watch. It was exciting. I wonder what Mr. Hansen is doing right now. Something tells me he's not watching us. But good morning, Mr. Hansen, if you are. All right, let's get into some serious stuff. We had the Derrick Chauvin verdict. Chris, I wanted to get your opinion on that. We haven't had you on the show in a little while. Do you think the jury got it right?
I do think the jury got it right in this case. I think there were three things that doomed Chauvin. One was the 9-minute video. One was the testimony of the witness who broke down on the stand. And three, I think it was just the callousness that Chauvin showed when the spectators were trying to tell him to get off Mr. Chauvin's neck. And, you know, he pulled out his mace, kind of showing that I'm in control. You're not going to tell me what to do. So I do think that the verdict was correct. I think it's very unfortunate that Maxine Waters flew into the scene and did what she did, because it throws kind of a taint on the verdict that maybe mob rule is what really created this verdict. But in all, Rob, I think it was the correct verdict.
Yeah, and he will be sentenced in a couple of months, and then the trial for the other three officers will start on August 23rd. Amy, I'm not sure what you think about this, but do you think those other three officers in Minneapolis and Hennepin County can get fair trials after everything that's gone on?
Well, it's going to be extremely difficult, and it's unfortunate that Judge Cahill did not sequester the jury from the get-go, because everybody, this is not just a national story, it's an international story, and all eyes were on this hearing. And the fact that this very well may help these three gentlemen, though, the fact that the prosecution during the Derrick Chauvin case actually stated that he was completely out of control, to the point where he was so bad that the other officers were powerless in stopping him. You know, that right there proves then that they did not aid or abet. Right. So that could possibly be in their favor. Now, the other problem could be dealing with the sequester scenario. If this upcoming jury is not sequestered, you know, it's very hard to prove if during the Chauvin case, one, did any of the jurors hear Mad Maxine's comments? Or two, if they did, then is anyone going to admit that it did change or not change their vote? Yeah,
and it's interesting, the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, I didn't like the timing of this yesterday. He wants the DOJ to investigate policing in the city of Minneapolis. So get this, since May 25th last year, that's when this all happened with George Floyd and Derrick Chauvin, 20% of the Minneapolis police force, just about 200 of their police officers have left the department, have taken early retirement, but 20% is a huge number. That by far the most in the country over that time. And now there's going to be a very intrusive investigation into policing there, where I think most of Americans feel that Derrick Chauvin, that the jury got it right. He might have been overcharged, but Derrick Chauvin was a bad apple, and that he doesn't represent all police officers in Minneapolis or all police officers in this country. The other situation developing yesterday was that shooting, Mikaya Bryant in Columbus, Ohio. Jen Psaki was asked about that in the briefing room. Here's what she had to say. Take a listen.
The killing of 16-year-old Mikaya Bryant by the Columbus police is tragic. She was a child. We're thinking of her friends and family and the communities that are hurting and grieving her loss. We know that police violence disproportionately impacts Black and Latino people in communities, and that Black women and girls, like Black men and boys, experience higher rates of police violence. We also know that there are particular vulnerabilities that children in foster care like Mikaya face.
I don't know what you thought about those comments, Chris. I thought they were offensive. Adam Toledo was a 13-year-old child as well, but he was also a gang member of the Latin Kings gang. Absolutely heartbreaking to watch these situations play out. But I did read an article in Red State, and I thought your opinion was interesting, basically, that if you want to stop police encounters like this that are violent, comply with police instruction.
I mean, I think that's the simplest thing that we can do if we want to immediately stop these fatal police encounters. You know, I wrote about in Red State about my experience. Most African American and young boys, get what's called the talk. We're told how to respond if we're ever pulled over by the police. And I can tell you one thing that was never in the talk for me was resisting arrest. That was just unfathomable to me and to my peers. And I think that's one thing we can do immediately to stop these. You know, we're going to have police reform. We're going to have a bunch of talk and discussion. But if you want to immediately stop these shootings, I think that's what you have to tell these African-American men, to comply with the police. Rob, I'll tell you, this Mikaya shooting for me was a light bulb moment. You know, it really told me what the Marxists and the liberals' true aim is. They believe in their liberal logic that they can eliminate police shootings if they make the police hesitant or fearful of using deadly force. And we know this is crazy liberal logic, that what you're really going to do is just make the criminals just more brazen.
Chris, a lot to talk about there. So now you think part of that conversation, that dialogue that you had with family when you were a little boy, that should include not resisting arrest and complying with what officers are asking you to do. Is that
exactly?
What you're saying?
I mean, if you look at all of these cases, Eric Garner, Derrick, or Mr. Floyd, Daunte Wright, in every single one of these situations, the perpetrator resisted arrest.
Yeah.
We can talk about what happened afterwards, but if George Floyd would have just gotten the car, if Daunte Wright would have just taken his arrest, they would probably still be alive today.
You can take out the probably. You can add Adam Toledo to that as well. They would be alive today, and they would have been arrested, and then they would face a judge and get their day in court. Amy, what's fascinating to me is the way this Columbus situation, which is still developing. I think we've all seen the video by this point, and if our viewers haven't, I encourage you to watch it. It's difficult to watch, but here's the difference in the way the media is portraying this. Certain news sites that lean to the left, are saying, white police officer kills black teenager, and then other news sites are saying that white police officer saves black teenager's life. Isn't that fascinating? Because this 16-year-old girl, Mikaya Bryant, came out and had a knife in her hand. The police body cam video clearly shows that, and she goes after a girl who's leaning up against the hood of a car. And my goodness, had the officer not done something, I'm not saying deadly force was necessary. That's not my decision to make. But this girl could have killed the other teenager.
Sure. And what the mainstream media is doing is incredibly reckless, and it's very dangerous. And who in their right mind would actually consider it's not a shock to me that 20% of that particular police force has actually stepped aside and removed themselves from harm on themselves. These people actually go out and they protect you and I on a daily basis. And this is an incredibly difficult job to actually take on for these individuals. And the fact that we have body cam footage is tremendously helpful. In the George Floyd case, it was great that we had that footage. We may not have had Derrick Chauvin, going to jail at this point if it wasn't for body cam and for the people who were standing by recording with their cell phones. The fact that we have this body cam footage showing, yes, he was a white police officer who shot a black teen, but the black teen had a knife. She was lunging at other black teens. So this is very reckless on the mainstream media's part for wanting to ignite and light more fire by throwing gasoline on it in this manner.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So I did see, Chris, I did see that some of the conversation yesterday was like, why didn't he pull out his taser? Tasers just aren't as efficient. And if you watch the video, this girl comes out, she's got the knife in her hand, and this officer will be, he's been taken off the force right now. He's off active duty right now as they sort of look into this. But we're going to see more and more of these because people have cell phones now. Everyone's got a cell phone, and most police departments require officers to wear body cam. I think body cam's a good thing. If we didn't have body cam, I don't think Derrick Chauvin is convicted. If we didn't have body cam, we wouldn't know exactly what happened in the situation with Columbus yesterday.
And Rob, one more thing too, as a parent of 4 kids, why are we seeing a dramatic increase in crime with knives, with guns, with young teenagers across our nation? This is very troubling.
Yeah, it's a good point. Chris, final thought, then we got to wrap it up.
And I tell you too, Rob, people aren't talking about this too. The Mikayla outweighed the other girl probably by 100 pounds. And when you talk about these consent decrees, Michael Brown's situation happened in Ferguson in 2014. The Ferguson Police Department is still under a police consent decree, which they basically want to put the Ferguson Police Department out of business. That's the real purpose.
Right down the road from you there in St. Louis.
Yes.
By the way, you know, people forget this, but it was a month and a half ago that the mayor of Minneapolis, he got $6 million to try and attract young cadets to the Minneapolis police force because, again, they're losing officers. You know, 20% of the force is gone in less than a year, in 11 months, which should say something. And now all of a sudden it's defund the police. Look, we need police in this country, okay? If something goes wrong, who do you call? And by the way, yesterday, or when this situation, they were called for somebody with a knife, a stabbing in Columbus. Who'd they call? They called the police. They called the Columbus Police Department there. We can get back into this at the top of the hour. For now, Amy Alto, Sax Tarkanian, and Christopher Loving the Arts, Arps. We'll see you guys again at the top of the hour. Thank you.